Just to let everybody know that we're going to start about 10 minutes late. Out of deference to Chairman Palazzolo.
Finish one poem and jump in another, right? That's what Zoom did to us.
Yeah,
It's a back-to-back meetings.
good. You?
It should be a fast meeting. We're just talking about things we already talked about.
You don't have fast meetings.
No, John, well, we gotta get his whole history. Talking about you down here. I said, based on the agenda,
Just
looks like
deny
we
it.
should get a
Just-
short meeting.
Yeah, go ahead, just
Except
deny
for
it.
John is here.
Well, you all had to show up. We were at 3. Leo, Sheila, and I were thinking, okay, no quorum, we're done.
Send everybody home.
Usually I don't, usually that.
He's got so many deadlines.
I hear you.
I gotta go home and do some more work. I had internet before I was in here. Did they change the password? I thought I had it before. E-point open it, so maybe it's off. They gotta download it. There you download it. I got it. You need it? That's this old one. Looks like it's working. just, okay. Yes. Yeah, I was just about to leave. Did you have a good 4th of July? You have a lot of family here?
No,
No?
just, we had, good people over.
We have a pretty big family, so we all met up at one. My sister that lives in Harper Woods. Jokes, and give us the jokes on this end. We're feeling left out. What's pass the jokes down?
Call to order the meeting of the East Point Planning Commission of Thursday, July 7th, 2022 at 7:10 PM. Secretary, please call the roll.
Mr. Broll,
Present.
Mr. Lalonde,
Present.
hang on, sorry. We're missing a name on our list. Ms. Naylor,
Here.
Ms. Julinski, yes. Chairman, Mr. DeHunt.
Here.
Chairman Palazzolo.
Here. Is a commissioner prepared to make a motion to approve the agenda for tonight's meeting?
I'll make that motion.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Are there any comments, questions, proposed changes? A motion by Vice Chair DeHunt and second by Commissioner Lalonde. Secretary, please call the roll.
Mr. DeHunt,
Yes.
Mr. Lalonde,
Yes.
Mr. Broll,
Yes.
Ms. Naylor,
Yes.
Ms. Julinski, yes. Chairman Palazzolo.
Yes. We move on to the first hearing of the public. If you would like to comment on the site plan amendment for the McDonald's located on 9 Mile Road, we ask that you hold those comments until the public hearing later in the agenda. If you would like to comment on any other topic, please request to be heard, wait to be called. And when called, please approach the podium, state your name, write your name on the ledger, and you will have 3 minutes to speak. Is there anyone who wishes to speak? Seeing none, we move on to the approval of the minutes. Is a commissioner prepared to make a motion to approve the minutes of the meeting dated June 2nd, 2022?
I'll make that motion.
Do we have a second?
Support.
We have a motion by Vice Chair DeHunt, second by Secretary Yalinsky. Are there any comments, questions, or concerns?
Yes. On page 2, item A, the second and third paragraphs where it says Mr. Bull, those are not questions I would have asked. So maybe, does anybody want to take ownership? Mr. DeHaan, that sounds like something you might say on pages 2 and 3, second paragraph.
I feel like I'm
and
slandered somewhere.
Wow.
I think you asked those, though.
Where was it at?
Page 3 of the PDF. Well, so if you go to the bottom of that first page, it's page 2, but page 3 of the PDF. Oh,
Page
you're not,
3
you don't
of
have
the
a
PDF.
PDF. I'm sorry. So page 2 for you. The second paragraph, it's literally the last paragraph on the bottom of that page. And then,
Yeah, that sounds like something I said.
yeah, I think it was you. And then it carries over to the next paragraph on the next page. And, yeah, so those sound like Mr. DeHaan's.
Do you recall asking about
I did actually.
notifications to the
I did
neighbors?
ask about letters.
Okay.
I'll take that one, too.
Okay.
So, Mr. DeHaan, we're in the middle of the next page on page 3 of the physical document, where it says Commissioner Burl asked the planner if the B3 district was needed for the storage units.
That's not me.
Yeah, okay, that's where I was thinking it kind of stopped, so, okay.
Vice Chair Hunt, would you like to rescind your motion and make a new motion in light
I
of
will
the?
rescind the motion and redo the motion approving the minutes with the adjustments that Commissioner Burl has indicated.
Is there a second?
Support.
Okay. We have motion by Vice Chair DeHaan and support from Commissioner Zelinski. Any other comments, questions, or concerns? Secretary, please call the roll.
Mr. DeHaan?
Yes.
Ms. Julinski, yes. Mr. Broll?
Yes.
Mr. Lalonde?
Yes.
Ms. Naylor?
Yes.
Chairman Palazzolo?
Yes. We move on to the public hearing for this evening. This is a public hearing for a site plan amendment request for the McDonald's located at 17921 East 9 Mile Road. If you would like to comment on this topic, please request to be heard and wait to be called. When called, please approach the podium, state your name, write your name on the ledger, and you will have 3 minutes to speak. Is there anyone who wishes to speak? Seeing none, we will move on to new business. Item A, will the planner please review the memorandum of June 29th, 2022?
Good evening. Thanks for having me. So the planning department's reviewed the site plan application for 17921 East 9 Mile Road in the B3 General Business District. The site plan application seeks to modify the footprint of the existing drive-through facility located at the McDonald's restaurant by adding an additional second drive-through lane. The Planning Commission might be familiar with this design because they've seen a similar design in 2012. This is an amended site plan to the 2012 site plan, and it's an amendment for the existing McDonald's facility. This site plan is an improvement to the original proposal in terms of site access, circulation, pedestrian safety, and landscaping. Due to the continued compliance with the zoning ordinance and originally approved site plan, it is recommended that the Planning Commission grant approval for the amended site plan for a second drive-through lane at the McDonald's restaurant.
Thank you. Do any commissioners have any questions for the planner? Is the applicant or a representative of the applicant present? Yes. Would you like to address the commission? Please go ahead. Please state your name and then record it on the ledger at the podium. Or
Good evening. My name is Jeff Brinks, and I'm with Venture Engineering, representing McDonald's. And yeah, I think it was summed up nicely what McDonald's is looking to do there. Obviously, especially over the last few years, a drive-through has become increasingly important part of the business, and the second lane affords them the opportunity to provide better service. And in the end, we think ultimately it's a win-win for both McDonald's and the city, with some improvements to pedestrian safety, elimination of a driveway, and some other additional green space that will certainly enhance the street presence, as well as also help McDonald's function more better internally. So certainly happy to answer any questions to the best of my ability if you have any. Otherwise, I thank you very much for your consideration.
do any commissioners have any questions for the representative?
I do.
Yes, sir.
Do you plan on cleaning up and repairing the existing drive-through that's in a sorry state?
The existing drive-through that's there now will be completely removed, and there'll be, smaller digital menu boards and a much more modern approach to the drive-through process.
So your tires won't bottom out when you pull through?
Right, right.
I have a question. Just timeline, what's the ETA on starting and how long will it take?
Well, they will probably start the permit process immediately, and hopefully get to it as soon as they possibly can. Usually it'll take them, I don't know, a month at the most, but they typically try to do it so that there's, they'll still keep the drive-through lane open as much as they're able to while they're making the improvements, so.
Thanks.
I have a question. Is the added drive-through only needed because the dining room's been closed and that's your increase in traffic?
Not really, no. I think McDonald's does, I think it's pushing 80% of their business through the drive-through in any event. So it really doesn't have a lot of bearing whether or not the lobbies are closed or not, because they do so much business through the drive-through. The second lane affords them the opportunity to, I think the last statistic I heard, they can do up to 50 additional cars during the peak hour, just because of the efficiencies of, they operate independently. So if someone's taking a long time in one lane, other people are continuing to move through in the other lane, so they don't have to be alternating. So that it's not really because of the lobby, it's just because they do so much drive-through business.
Well, I think the efficiency comes from if you hire skilled employees.
True. Yep, yeah, it all falls apart with people, for sure. The technology is there, if the people are there to utilize it.
Don't ever tell the owners to read the East Point Residence Group because they're vicious against that location.
Okay, I will do so.
Do any of the commissioners have any questions for the representative? Is the commissioner prepared to make a motion to approve the site plan as presented in the commission packet for this meeting?
I'll make that motion.
Do we have support?
Second, Kimberly.
We've got a motion by Vice Chair Hunt, support from Commissioner Naylor. Are there any last comments, questions, or concerns? Secretary, please call the roll.
Mr. DeHunt,
Yes.
Ms. Naylor,
Yes.
Mr. Broll,
Yes.
Mr. Lalonde,
Yes.
Ms. Julinski, yes. Chairman Palazzolo.
Yes. Move on to, thank you, sir.
I would like to, as long as I'm here, pay a compliment to staff. They have been great to work with, particularly Mara, who's been kind of helping through the process, and I have nothing but great things to say about working with the city, so.
If you email our city manager as well as all the people on city council,
Yeah. Okay,
that would be absolutely wonderful because they don't necessarily listen to us too much.
right, okay.
Yeah, because we've had those same sentiments.
Well, at any rate, I always wait till you're done, but it's true. So great, thank you.
Yeah. We move on to unfinished business, item A. Will the planner please review the memorandum of June 29th, 2022?
Yes, thank you, Chairman Palazzolo. This application is from the last Planning Commission meeting, which is a request for an event space located in the B1 Community Business District, and as such is a special land use. At the meeting last month, there was a public hearing, and our recommendation on page 3 is contingent on any other comments that have been received from the public. And it's been brought to our attention that there have been some complaints to the city regarding events at this location. We understand that there is a family with a child that has sensory sensitivities, and that the traffic and noise generated from this use is becoming a nuisance. So we would like to bring that to your attention. The other item that's really changed, or the other aspect that's changed since you last reviewed this special land use, is the parking. And since the previous meeting, the applicant has secured 3 parking agreements with the adjacent property owners for an additional 53 spaces. And the parking agreements have been reviewed by city attorney, who has found them satisfactory, aside from the exhibits that would need to be attached for recording with those legal descriptions. So parking is discussed further on page 6 of our review. And based on the size of the facility, 33 parking spaces are required. So with the new parking agreements, the deficiency in parking is no longer a question. The applicant has stated that there will be events for approximately 50 individuals. However, since
Last month, the fire marshal has also determined that the maximum capacity of the facility is now 100 individuals. So that is the maximum capacity you would realistically be looking at for this space. So based on those two new items, the applicant has moved this project closer into compliance with the ordinance standards. However, with the parking, that's satisfied. However, they're still asking for several waivers to the site plan, and this is not on the agenda tonight for site plan approval, only for special land use. However, I think it's important to note that they would be asking for a waiver to the trash enclosure, to have it unscreened, and to use an adjacent business. They're also asking for a waiver from the adjacent single-family residential neighborhood, the screening that's required. There's approximately an evergreen shrub there, 3 feet in height. They're asking to use that as the screening mechanism instead of the 6-foot masonry wall. They're also not proposing any other site landscaping. So this item, is a discretionary consideration for the commission. If you think the intensity of the use at 100 individuals based on concerns raised by those in the residential neighborhood can comply with the intent of the master plan, which does plan it for a more low intensity or lesser intensity use, with the future land use category of flexible residential and neighborhood mixed use. But your recommendation tonight would be to the city council for their final determination. Thank you.
Do any commissioners have any questions for the city planner? Who received the communication from the resident?
As I understand, the city manager's office.
Can anyone else validate that? Would you mind saying that on record?
My understanding is that there were some comments made at a previous planning commission meeting, and then the building department, the city manager's office was made aware of complaints by the building department, the building official, who had gone out to check on what was going on. So we were well aware of that there had been some complaints. Those, of course, were, I think, several months ago when this process was first being started.
Is the applicant present? Would you like to approach the podium?
I'm the owner, well, I own that building and I actually own the boutique that's next door to it. I live in East Point and I work in East Point, and I have the pictures for the wall that she was referring to, how it's going to block everything, so I can show you.
Would you mind writing your name down on the ledger there?
Yeah.
Thank you.
We haven't had any events in a minute, and the ones that we did have were basically baby showers and prom send-offs to keep it to a low capacity until we got everything approved. There was one event where they were called, where it was a complaint. I met the officers out there, and he was saying they didn't have it on record, but I actually did have it, the temporary use application put in, so it was okay. But then after that, they told me I had to call the marshal, so he had to come out and do everything, check everything, and I had everything approved through him, that everything was okay. But this is the home. And you see the shrubbery? This is their driveway, right actually behind it too, so you can't like block it because they can't pull in and out their driveway.
Oh, this is directly behind.
Right. And the garbage can use is actually for my boutique, not the hall, because anything that comes into the hall is taken, and they bring stuff in, they bring it out, take it out. You see how it was blocking?
Have you spoken to that neighbor?
No, I was just talking to her, and she was just asking me about it. I haven't had any complaints about that neighbor. When we first got the building, my daughter did talk to him, but I haven't had any complaints, and they knew that we had a boutique next door. So if there was any issues with that neighbor, they would have came and approached us as a boutique.
Okay, but did you also speak to the neighbor about the shrubs and if you
No,
had
that's
put
it.
up? Oh, that,
No, I haven't asked them about a wall for them, because I know they probably would. I wouldn't want a wall put no right there, and I gotta drive, it's my driveway, and then my bushes on my lawn.
no, I understand that, yeah.
That'd take away from their house, you know what I'm saying? So that's why, I didn't think that was gonna be an issue, so.
Do any other commissioners have any questions for the applicant?
I do. So I see, so let me understand that parcel of land that you're at the end of a strip mall, right?
Yes,
If you will.
yes.
And what is the parking arrangement, like how many parking spots does 22435 get?
Do they get per se?
Is it designated? Do you have a certain requires dedicated spots?
Yes, and I have, like I said, I have the boutique right next to it, so it's my boutique and the hall, and then I have parking in the back also. But I have the cleaners on the other side, she signed a waiver before I can park. I have the restaurant on the other side, and I have business owners is right there in the plaza.
Right, so here's where I'm struggling.
Okay.
With the parking. I see that you have signed shared agreements, which I personally have always struggled with that, and this is a good example of how I'm struggling with it right now.
Okay,
You've presented four different, if I'm counting correctly, four different signed agreements. One of
Yes.
them's Potsy's across the street, which is not even part of your strip mall,
right,
right? And you have 8 different addresses in that strip mall, but you presented, in addition to 22435, you presented 3 signed agreements. Why not 8?
I did the one next door to the cleaners part, because it's closer, instead of them going using other people's down that way. And I did hers, and I talked to the young lady there, and I was like, mainly everything's gonna be probably after 5 o'clock. They're closed at 5 o'clock, so it's right there. And then I have, like I said, my parking from the hall and my boutique and behind my hall and the boutique.
But I would ask you though, if you're gonna have up to 50 people, and now we're getting communication that you can have up to 100 people.
Right.
You're gonna need to fill the entire parking lot.
Not necessarily.
Well, you could.
I can, but not necessarily, because like I told them, when they're parking, I don't want them parking, like if the alley is here, I don't ask them to park that way. They park right behind my building, in my parking lot, and the parking's where I got assigned, agreements with. And I, like, repass I just had not too long ago. They parked over in the other parking lot because it was more space and there wasn't any parked cars there. So it made it better for them.
Where's that one? Which, clarify where that
That's
is at?
the one on,
Behind Potsy's?
right there on Kelly, Papa's, right next door to Papa's. I have his
Oh,
signature
that
too
one.
as well.
Yeah.
I have his signature too as well.
But I struggle because why not get signatures from everybody in that plaza? Because theoretically, and actually 22325 is
On the corner.
3 spots away. And
Right.
I'm sure they'll.
But I have another one, it's a salon and it's a boutique. I have those. And the lady next door to me, I never came to her because the owner is never there. And I need the owner's signature. She's never there, it's always her workers. So I brought those, the ones that I did have, to make sure everything is okay. And then if I need to go back, I can go back. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I do. I would feel better if you had all 8. I'll just tell you,
Right.
I see that you can easily fill up some of those are really small areas too, so I can see where those.
And it's actually a small hall. I mean, I have every event that I had to do the temporary use, it's been under 75 people. So it's not like we're really using that whole strip mall, you know what I'm saying? So if it came to that and I had to do that, that's not a problem. I'm sure I can get more signatures. Because everybody's that's on that strip mall has been okay. The only thing that it's a building on the other end, right across the street from Papa's. I don't know that owner. He's out of town or out of the country. I don't know where he is. And no one manages that building on the end.
What about, you said they park behind your building? I didn't see any striped parking. Did I miss it?
Striped parking?
Is there striped parking in the back?
What you mean, like?
You said people park behind your building.
I said they
as well.
can park, they can park.
They haven't though.
No,
Okay.
they can't park. Like, if we're there in the boutique, we park in the back. It's
Yeah.
probably in the back, I say, within the boutique and the hall, probably 6 parking spaces.
Okay, but there's room, let me clarify, there's
Okay.
room for 6 spots, there's not 6
Lines, no,
spots.
no.
So I.
It looked like it
so
probably
when I
was
looked at
there
it-
and probably just wore off.
When I
so
looked
I don't
at
know.
it, I thought, okay, you know, that employees or the ownership could park
Right.
back there, but that you wouldn't have patrons parking back there.
No, just mainly the people that's coming in for catering.
Or catering.
They'll come back there and they'll set up, or who's doing the decorations, they'll come back there and set up through the back door.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, I mean, you answered my questions, but I would.
I understand exactly what you're saying.
Because at the end of the day, that's a shared parking spot.
Mm-hmm.
And if you really are gonna fill the entire parking, and you wanna meet that requirement, you know, to me, I would feel better with more.
And the only reason why I went that way, like I said, to the cleaners, because it's right there. It's like, we're here and the cleaners is right here, and they're not there after 5 o'clock, and all the events are from 5. So that's why I say I counted those more so than anything. And then they got a little parking thing in the back. That's it.
Do any other commissioners have any questions for the applicant?
I'd love to see the front of that building.
The front of the
I'd love to
building?
see the front of that building look nicer. You know, part of our vision for the master plan on Kelly Road was to make it fun.
He did the building, he did
Well, no,
the,
I'm talking about in the median, just somehow
Oh.
make it look more aesthetically pleasing,
okay.
as opposed to just a.
I understand what you're saying.
But the whole concept when we did the master plan, the vision was to make Kelly into something really amazing, you know, whether it's a walkable parkway going down the median or getting bars and restaurants, just to make it a little bit more lively. And it just seems like this doesn't meet the master plan. I can't say that it's against it, it doesn't necessarily meet it, but I'd love to see it look just great.
But you gotta think about it. What we do is we building up businesses. We trying to promote people to open up new businesses. I got a plan for a mammogram truck to come in there and do free mammograms. I have a lot of stuff like kids' business kids starting their own business, do a little shop for them to come in there and promote their own businesses. It's a lot of positive stuff though.
I appreciate that. I
Right.
just think if you could make it look prettier.
Okay, what you want me to do?
I want to see some flowers, some shrubbery. I'm sure that our building department would have some wonderful ideas to help and.
It is beautiful, it's just, it's brand.
Okay, so what you want me to put some flowers right there on Kelly? I'll go and I'll plant my own flowers now.
I just would, just to make it look nicer. And is that not was that not one of the concerns, Laura? Wasn't that one of the concerns that there was no additional landscaping being proposed?
Correct, that's one of the site plan considerations.
I need that.
You want me to put some flowers out there? What kind of flowers you
I'll
want?
let you talk to Laura. Okay, Bruce.
Put some flowers in the front. Is that it? Anyone else you want to ask me?
Any other commissioners have any questions for the applicant? Is a commissioner prepared to recommend approval of the proposed? Oh,
I have a question for city administration, kind of going back to the whole parking thing, which I've always, again, been a little uncomfortable with signed agreements for parking spaces. So how often does the applicant have to file for a permit to operate in the city of East Point?
Such as a business license?
Mhm.
Business licenses every year. Once a year.
Can it be conditional that if, to meet the parking requirements are also reviewed? My concern is that you could have somebody that's renewing a license and an agreement for adequate parking is no longer valid or renewed. How does that get enforced or managed? Because once we go down that path, and again, this is why I just struggle with it, how do we manage that they still have adequate parking? What's the process?
I think I would defer to the city attorney and the planners in terms of best practices. The business license process it's pretty rigorous. And actually, we are switching it around because right now we wanted to start with the appropriate zoning. And that's been a big problem that we've run into is they apply for their license and get the different inspections. But there's a lot of hoops that applicants have to jump through.
Mr. Chairman, if I could address that question.
Please.
These parking agreements are going to be recorded with the Macomb County Register of Deeds. Perhaps city administration wants to consider doing some type of record search to make sure that the parking agreements are still in effect. They could also have the applicant sign an affidavit attesting to the fact that the parking agreements are still in effect and there has not been any change. If there has been a change, a substitute parking agreement has been negotiated. I mean, those are all things that we could certainly talk about. The requirement for a parking agreement is a relatively new requirement, so I think that these are things that can certainly be worked out with city administration, but I think that's a great point, and it's a great concern to have, and it's something that should be addressed.
Yeah,
But
and
on the city administration side, it can be taken care of.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, this is not just to this applicant. We actually had discussions about another spot, and there were shared agreements, and the applicant flat out told us, I have shared agreements. And the next meeting when they came back, they said, well, we don't have shared agreements. So I would like a definitive process put in place if we're gonna approve it. If it comes to us approving it, that should be something that is part of the check process. As far as the masonry wall, I think you guys know where I stand with it. I've always been an advocate of completing the 95% of the masonry walls that are up in the city. So, you know, that, to me, that's a point of contention as well. Unless a resident that lived nearby or adjacent comes in and says, no, I would like, you know, to have greenery or something. You know, to me, that was always the trigger, especially when you have a commercial thoroughfare in the back of a building. And so, you know where I stand with that.
Is the commissioner prepared to?
I have
take-
another question.
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
Okay.
I'm sorry, what is the name of your resale shop? Okay, so you have the parking agreement with Forever Boutique? Am I in the right? Okay.
Are you trying to find out if they're next to each other or what?
Yeah, just because you know where I'm going with this. So just because I know there's a strip over there that has a lot of LED lights in their windows. No, we don't have any. Perfect. I'm done.
I know we can't have them because of Lucas and everything, we'll need all that.
Okay.
I'm good.
Is the commissioner prepared to make a motion to recommend approval of the proposed special land use for an event hall at 22345 Kelly Road, parcel ID 02-14-32-229-024 to City Council, contingent that a revised site plan is presented to the Planning Commission to address the landscaping, trash collection, and screening based upon the following findings of fact, and provided that the parking agreements are subject to a final review and approval by the city attorney with exhibits. Findings of fact are A, while the proposal makes use of an existing vacant building, which supports the redevelopment and goals of the 2040 master plan, the proposed event hall remains in intensive use and would benefit from additional site plan considerations to better screen or buffer the adjacent residential neighborhoods. B, the subject site is planned for a flexible residential neighborhood mixed use on the future land use map of the 2040 master plan, which is intended to permit neighborhood serving uses and businesses for the convenience of East Point residents. C, the subject site is located within a mixed-use neighborhood servicing corridor and is adjacent to other B1 local business district zoning designations and directly adjacent to the west to a single-family residential neighborhood. And D, that the site is no longer deficient in the number of required parking spaces for the use due to the parking agreement secured or to be secured and finalized by the applicant. Okay. Is there support? support, or we have a motion by Commissioner Naylor, support from Vice Chair DeHunt. Are there any last questions, comments, or concerns?
I have a question. I'm uncertain what I'm voting on in terms of the fencing. What am I voting on in terms of the
You
fencing?
are not. We are only recommending approval of the special land use at this time. The motion would require that the applicant bring the site plan back to us at a later date.
Okay.
Any other comments, questions, or concerns? Secretary, please call the roll.
Ms. Naylor? Mr. DeHunt?
Yes.
Mr. Broll?
Yes.
Mr. Lalonde?
Yes.
Ms. Julinski, yes. Chairman Palazzolo?
Yes. Move on to item B of new business. Will the planner please review the memorandum of June 30th, 2022?
Yes, this project is not new to Planning Commission. The project has been engaged in over a year now. Enclosed, we have the proposed text changes to the definitions in residential commercial districts of the zoning ordinance as they relate to state licensed residential facilities and other similar uses that bring the current ordinance into compliance with the Michigan Zoning Enabling Act and bring the ordinance into compliance with other state and federal regulations. On page 2 of the memo, we have a summary of proposed use changes to each district. You can see in red text indicates a change to the district. Highlighted red indicates that the use is not permitted today and is proposed to be added. Below, we have density equivalencies for each zoning district. I would like to say that on row 2 for R2, two-family residential, in the density column, we need to amend that to 12.44. That's an error, so 12.44. In this table here, the whole density equivalencies table is just the existing densities, and this is for reference for discussion today, but will be considered to be amended during our zoning ordinance update. In the following page, we have our definition section and all of the additions and deletions, or proposed additions and deletions. In red, again, we have the additions, and strike through, we have deletions. So we have a draft motion for you today on page 1. Recommending approval of proposed text amendments of the zoning ordinance, sections, definition, one-family residential, R2 residential, RM residential, multi-family residential, the office service district, community business district, the business, general business district, as they relate to state licensed residential facilities and similar uses to bring the current ordinance into compliance with the Michigan Zoning Enabling Act and other state and federal regulations. Thank you.
Does any commissioner have a question for the planner? Secretary Ulitzki.
So I just want to make sure, I mean, I see that, you know, they have to be registered with the Michigan Department of Licensing and Regulatory Affairs. How are we going to monitor that? What if we get the home that opens that we don't know about? Do we just wait until we inadvertently find out about it?
On something like that, where the city administration is dependent on neighbors for reporting those types of uses, the police department, the fire department, any other DPW department, the city attorney's office, anybody that becomes aware of that, we would certainly take steps to make sure that the ordinances were enforced and that they're brought into compliance.
Okay. And then I know if they're licensed with the state of Michigan, they have to have the state of Michigan, you know, I don't know if they, can't remember how many times they have to go through the home. I know when they open it, and then I know they get inspections at least annually. Do we leave that up to the state then, or is the city going to have any inspections as well?
There might be inspections that are conducted by the fire department.
If it's listed as a commercial, if it's a commercial building, then yes, we can go in and do that. We'll just have to advise the state though, because if it's a state things that they control, they'd be the authority having jurisdiction over
Okay,
that.
that's just what I wanted to make
But-
sure, like,
But we can obviously, yes, inspect it, and if we find deficiencies, advise the state, and then the state can come down on it. Kind of like the schools, the authorities have jurisdiction in the schools, or the state has jurisdiction in the schools. I can go in and do an inspection, but I can't enforce anything. I can let them know, and then they enforce.
oh, perfect, okay. Thank you.
Do any other commissioners have any comments or questions for the city planner or for the city attorney?
I do have one more
Okay.
question. Sorry.
Mm.
So when these homes open, and this might sound silly, but do they need to get permission from the surrounding neighbors to be able to have that group home or halfway house in their neighborhood?
I don't believe so.
Okay.
And I also believe that would violate state law. I'm pretty
Well,
sure.
I'm just,
Yeah.
If the city tried to make that a requirement, I think we would run into trouble.
Yeah.
Okay.
Trying to defend that in court.
got it. Thank you.
I have a question for Mr. Albright. I'm looking at the definition out under halfway home. A licensed home for inmates on release for more restrictive custodial confinement or initially placed in lieu of whatever. So you know where I'm at. For inmates only, why couldn't a halfway home be for people that are in a rehabilitation program or something like that? Why, I'm just, is this a state mandated thing? It just seems very restrictive that halfway homes are only for inmates.
I'm sorry, can I ask you a question? So when you say people who are being rehabilitated, you mean for potential substance abuse issues or
Yes,
anything like that?
potentially
Okay.
substance abuse.
Yeah.
I've had a number of friends actually that have been in halfway homes. They weren't inmates,
Yeah.
but they were in a halfway home. So I'm curious about the language because of that.
Halfway homes are generally homes that house inmates who are essentially on parole. It's a halfway point to being released, without any restriction into society. Now, there are certainly variations of that, but the general definition of a halfway home or halfway house meets this definition right here.
Yeah.
So if you had a home that was a rehabilitation facility or a place for addicts that are recovering, would that fall under this? Or would that be something different?
I think that would be something different. This definition here addresses individuals who have been housed in the Michigan Department of Corrections, and they are now being paroled, and they're going through their parole process, hopefully to be released into society as totally rehabilitated. That's what this definition addresses.
So would somebody in a drug rehabilitation program, would we need to include some sort of language in here about something like that?
I don't know if that is covered in one of the other definitions. So we could propose adding a substance abuse treatment facility definition.
I think that's important, especially in this day and age with the opioid addictions. And people need to know that where they're staying is a safe place.
Yes, that is a definition that could be added, but I don't think that, again, that what you're describing, Commissioner DeHunt, would fall under halfway home. I think that's something completely separate.
I have another question.
Yes, Secretary Lindsay.
So under the adult foster care family home, it states the adult foster care family home licensee must be a member of the household and an occupant of the residence. If the licensee, say, owns multiple foster care homes, they can't possibly live in all of them. How does that work and how is that monitored? I mean, you can't monitor it, I know that.
Ms. Haw is telling me that that is something that will be handled, I believe, at the state level.
Yeah, so if I understand the question, the adult foster care family home requires that the licensee be a member of the household. So that would be on their application. If they had a separate, license for a large group home, then they would not be required to be an occupant of the residence. And they could have those two licenses with the state, but if they had multiple, family homes, then that would be a red flag for the state, that they could not be the same, an occupant of those multiple households.
Okay.
I have a question.
Yes.
I wasn't aware that the Department of Corrections had halfway homes anymore. I thought they did away with them years ago. You know what they do?
I believe that they're still in existence. I don't have any firm knowledge on that. I don't have a lot of experience with halfway homes, but as far as I know, they're still in existence. That's something I can certainly check, though, while we're here during the meeting.
Chair, I have a question. Is that okay?
Please.
Okay. Commissioner Jahan, I remember at the last meeting or last discussion of this item, you mentioned different density requirements or where you wanted to see different types of uses permitted and as special land uses in the different residential zoning districts, if you recall. So I'm just making sure that the commission's looking at this table of summary of uses, and you see that adult foster care family homes for 1 to 6 people are permitted in the districts you want them to be permitted in, but then also adult foster care small group homes for 7 to 12 people are permitted, or special land uses where you see that they might be an adequate use in that district.
I see that and I'm fine with it. I'm concerned about that definition more than anything right now.
Are there any other questions or concerns? So I still have a concern with what has been presented because I still think we violate state law. The table that you propose seems to me to actually prove the point, whereas we would allow a foster care facility, family home of 7 or more children by right in an RT or RM1 or 2 district. I would think we would similarly have to permit by right and not even as a special land use, just flat out not permit at all an adult foster care small group home of 7 to 12 persons. If someone can explain how that math works, where because they're little people, they count more or less, it seems a bit strange to me.
Chairman Palzo, I think you're right with the adult foster care small group home, the 7 to 12 persons. Right now, it is a special land use in the R1. But if it were a permitted use in the RT and the RM1, RM2?
Yeah, I think it absolutely has to be a permitted use. If we're going to say that a foster care family home of 1 to 6 children is permitted by right based on that density, or I'm sorry, of 7 or more children is permitted by right based on density, then we would probably similarly have to permit, unless someone can come up with some very interesting math that I don't think would hold up in court, why an adult foster care facility of 7 to 12 persons is similarly, or is not permitted. So I think we have to change that to permitted by right for adult foster care group home 7 to 12 persons in RT and RM1 and 2 to be permitted by right.
I agree.
Yeah, so we definitely need to make that change. And in fact, all of the language that you have in there is all under the special land use section, which is prejudicial against adult foster care uses, which is not permitted under the Zoning Enabling Act. So you need to take away all the language that's in the special land use and move it up into the by right. So for example, just in case, so people can follow along what I'm talking about. So in 5080, right, no, I'm sorry, I'm in the wrong one. Yeah, I'm sorry, in 5080 RM1, right? This is under the special land use approval section. 5 would include adult foster care, small group homes. But it doesn't show up in the table that way. But I still think, even if you identified it as special land use, it would violate the intent of the Zoning Enabling Act. So, I think we definitely need to rework this a little bit more. And furthermore, I would think, based on density, that we would probably need to permit an adult foster care large group home of 13 to 20 persons by right in an RM2 district. I would bet that if somebody did the math, they could probably figure out that the densities are roughly equivalent between those two uses. So while I can certainly appreciate what we've talked this to death, I personally don't feel comfortable asking for a motion to approve at this time. I would rather feel comfortable for a motion to table to allow options to, or allow an opportunity to clarify these edits one more time until the August 2022 meeting, so we can review one more time.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
Okay. We have a motion by Vice Chair DeHaan and second by Commissioner Lalonde. Secretary, please call the roll.
Mr. DeHunt,
Yes.
Mr. Lalonde,
Yes.
Mr. Broll,
Yes.
Ms. Naylor, Ms. Julinski, yes. Chairman Palazzolo.
Yes. Move on to unfinished business, item C, which is an update to the discussion of the future land use map. Will the planner address the documents these are the documents that have been provided to us, correct?
Correct. There's two maps in front of you this evening on 11 by 17s. One of them is the future land use map that's proposed, so it contains the proposed changes. And then the other one is the future land use map dated 2019 from your adopted master plan. And the differences between the two maps that we previously talked about incorporating now show the 9 Mile Corridor Mixed-Use District in dark purple. We've adjusted the single-family residential stayed the same, but the two-family and the multifamily have now been grouped together to represent missing middle housing. Industrial has been changed to light industrial, since the type of industries in the city are not nearly as intensive as other traditional industrial districts. And then we've combined the park and public space as civic and open space. This map also reflects the change of the self-storage facility off Stevens that was conditionally rezoned. That was previously shown, you can see on the current map as multifamily, and that now shows as light industrial. One other area that we would like to bring to your attention to discuss is on 10 Mile, just east of Gratiot, at the corner there of Saxony. There are 4 parcels total that are planned on the future land use map as light industrial now. And the existing structures on those sites really lend themselves more to an office type use. And the city has received multiple requests for a daycare facility, some other office uses, I believe, salon, so retail service establishments. And given the, the nature of this corridor, we're recommending that that would be considered as regional commercial on the future land use map, in anticipation that there would likely be a rezoning for these sites, and then that application would, be in conformance with the future land use map. So that is one point for consideration. And if you are comfortable with that change, then we would make it and bring it back to the commission for recommendation of approval to City Council for the August meeting. Thank you.
Do any commissioners have any questions for the city planner?
I have a question. So,
Yes.
to follow on the comment you made about 4 parcels, is that the north side of 10 miles, just east of Rush, or purple?
That would be on the south side of 10 Mile, at the corner of Saxony.
So there's 4 parcels you're proposing that we go ahead and rezone now, so they don't have to get a special use.
Well, this would be a change to the future land use map, so it would be to regional commercial, but it would allow or enable, when the applicant did come in for a rezoning, that it would align with the future land use of the master plan. Because this is the one, document in particular that the city must look at to determine if it's following compliance with the intended vision.
Do any other commissioners have any questions for the planner?
Just real quick on that parcel, are you saying, I'm trying to envision what building is there right now, or buildings? You're saying it's zoned right now for light industrial, correct?
Yes, it is zoned right now for light industrial, and then the back portion is zoned for parking. The P1 district.
The site is known as Saxony Place.
Yeah, okay, makes sense. Thanks.
Do any other commissioners have any questions for the planner, city planner? Ms. House, so I know we talked about these 4 parcels at the southwest corner of Saxony and 10 Mile Road. Are there any others any other recommended changes? Or was it just?
I think that was one of the most important ones that were brought to our attention just because of the nature of the increase. There's an error with a park that's shown as single family right now. It's supposed to be civic and open space. I'm not sure how that happened, but we'll make sure that that's coded properly. But no other requested changes.
And I'm sorry, what's the location you just identified?
Spindler Park.
Spindler. Is a commissioner prepared to make a motion to request that the city planner prepare the master plan amendment process for the areas identified in the future land use map?
I'll make that motion. Second.
Motion by Commissioner Broll and support by Vice Chair DeHaan. Are there any last questions, comments, or concerns? Secretary, please call the roll.
Mr. Broll,
Yes.
Mr. DeHunt,
Yes.
Mr. Lalonde,
Yes.
Ms. Naylor, Ms. Julinski, yes. Chairman Palazzolo.
Yes. Ms. Howell, is there anything else you want to discuss on this item before we move on?
Not regarding the master plan, thank you.
Move on to the second hearing of the public. If you'd like to participate in the second hearing of the public, please request to be heard and wait to be called. When you're called, please approach the podium, state your name, and write your name on the ledger, and you will have 3 minutes to speak. Is there anyone who wishes to speak? Mr. Jakubiec.
Walter Kubiak, East Point resident. I have a real problem with McDonald's. You haven't been able to go in there for at least a year and a half. This is the second time they've come before us for a second drive-through. The last one they let expire. I don't know how many of you remember that. I figured if I did, some of you might have. But anyway, if they can find more people to work there and not open up, I don't think they care about this community. You know, we're spending $5 a gallon for gas, and they want us to stand in their drive-through, burn up our gas, and the only people that can go in there are Uber drivers. I got a problem with that. I think before you let them have that second drive-through, force them to open the door and let us go inside and order. Because I will not stand in that line. Because there's other places that are open. So I think that should be a consideration.
Thank you, sir. Is there anyone else that wishes to be heard? Seeing no one, close the second hearing of the public. We have no training for this evening.
Chairman Palazzolo?
Yes.
Sorry. We were hoping to present an update to the zoning ordinance under the training. No action is being requested by the commission. As an update of the public engagement that was conducted at the Gratiot Cruise.
Okay. Please go ahead.
Great, so we have our participation boards in the back, and we'd like to invite everyone to participate, including the Planning Commission and members of the public. So far, we've collected feedback from 2 different occasions, the 2022 Gratiot Cruise, and then also the East Point Roseville Chamber of Commerce, June 2022 meeting. So all of the feedback represented on the boards behind us represent feedback from those 2 meetings. And they're broken up into 3 different categories. We have economic development, which is mainly what we want to see in our business districts. Also gathering spaces, so public land use and how we want to see that designed. And then what type of housing typologies we would like to see in the city of East Point. So each person was directed, and please feel free to still engage in this event as well, to place 1 sticky where they would like to see the design of their choice. We've got a couple different design concepts featured here. Today, we're going to be focusing on our discussion on housing, because that's what the steering commission's focusing on for the month of July. So we want to feature what the results are for the public housing engagement so far. So far, the top priority for a design concept in the housing realm were single-family homes with 19 votes total. Then we have the second runner-up, traditional townhomes with the community green space. You can see here on the left column to the, I think it's the last row, left column, last row of housing. And that has 10 votes. But before that, we have the duplex, was actually a winner, the second runner-up, I guess, with 13 votes. And the duplex typology of preference was on the second column, last row. So please feel free to engage in this after the meeting. And we also have the East Point Marketplace board up there. We're working on creating a public gathering space in the East Point Marketplace by the library in the children's community garden. We've also received good feedback on what types of activities would draw people out there, where people are traveling from. Are they traveling from St. Clair Shores? Where would they be prone to park, so we can engage in that, the walkway as they as they explore the East Point Marketplace.
They could ride the scooters.
They could ride scooters. All right, we'll add that comment on, Commissioner. Thank you.
Do any commissioners have any questions for the city planner?
Did you bring sun chips for participation?
Kim, do you have any subjects?
I'm sorry. I didn't hear it.
We were just asking if you have sun chips. We'll note that in the minutes for next time, okay?
Could that be considered bribery?
No, if you did that at the Gratiot Cruise, you got sun chips as a thank you.
So pay off.
It was appreciation.
Positive incentive.
There you go.
Okay, if there are no other questions, we'll move on to.
Chairman?
Oh, yes.
I'm sorry, if I could provide a couple other updates
Oh,
about
sure.
the zoning ordinance? Thank you. There have been some other movements with the zoning ordinance update. The next steering committee meeting is July 26th, and at that meeting, the parking study that was done for the downtown district by AEW will be discussed and presented. If anyone is interested in a copy, I'm happy to provide that if you don't have it already. There's also a webpage that has been created on the city's homepage where all of this information will live, including the progress memos, the progress memo that's before you this evening as well. So this is a good, repository to check in as to where we are in the process, and if you, can be an advocate in the community and direct any traffic to the website so that people can learn more, that would be advantageous. We're also going to be looking at doing some social media outreach to better connect with the public. This evening in front of you on the progress memo number 3, we do provide some information regarding housing in the zoning ordinance update. Specifically on page 3 of that packet in front of you, we discuss Articles 8 and 9, which are the single-family and the multifamily zoning districts. And there's a couple different discussion points that we would appreciate your feedback on. These items will be discussed in length with the steering committee. But these are some of the major areas that we're looking at adjusting as part of this rewrite. So the first would be to create a low-density residential district. So that would be combining the R1 and R2. The fourth page, the next page in our packet, provides a quick summary chart of the uses that are allowed in each of the districts, whether it's permitted by right or by special land use. And between the R1 single family and the R2 district, there are only minor changes, and that would primarily, the R2 primarily introduces the duplex. So we'd like to have a conversation on if this new low-density residential district would permit duplexes by either special land use or by right, and then adjusting the minimum dimensional standards. Currently, there's only a handful of R2 zoned parcels along Brittany Avenue in the city. So this would combine them into one district. And then under that same vein, combining the multifamily district, there's 3 multifamily districts today, the RT, the townhouse district, which there's only 4 or 5 parcels that are zoned that district. And then the RM, of course, is the regular low-rise multifamily residential, and then the RM2 is the mid-rise. There's no property that's zoned the RM2 in the city today. The uses are primarily the same between those 2 multifamily districts, but the building height does increase to 5 stories. So we would recommend combining all 3 of those districts into one, a medium-density residential district. And then ensuring that multiple family is more present in the mixed-use commercial corridors. And then the last point is to really take a fine tooth comb to the schedule of regulations, the dimensional standards for the single-family residential district. So we've also provided that section of the ordinance in front of you. These are the standards as they exist today. So for instance, you can see that in the RT district, that third column down, or third row, excuse me, down, the maximum height of the building in stories is 2. So if this is the dedicated townhome district at 2 stories, this just by default doesn't work. So as part of the consolidation into a one medium density residential district with the townhome district and the 2 multifamily districts, we'd be revising these standards into something that would be more incentivizing for the type of development that the community is looking for. Are there any initial thoughts on these discussion points or housing in general? It's not something that the commission has reviewed much of, aside from, I think, a couple PUDs in the recent past. But hopefully with some changes to the zoning ordinance, this might encourage some new residential developments.
Do any commissioners have any questions or comments?
I have a comment that would say definitely with regard to maybe with the R1 and R2 so that you have less height restrictions. Most of those townhome developments want to restrict parking, allows you so the height is a little bit more. Walk on more research along those lines.
Any other comments or questions? Ms. Hawes, is there anything else you'd like to cover?
I think those are the main points. If anyone has any suggestions or thoughts after reading through the material a bit more, please feel free to contact us. We'd really appreciate to hear your thoughts.
Well, we don't have any training for this evening, so we'll move on to comments. Ms. Holman, is there anything that you'd like to say? No.
Yeah.
I know I can hear the fire marshal. So fire marshal, is there anything you'd like to say? No, thank you very much. Okay, thank you, sir. Mr. Albright, is there anything you'd like to say?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. During the meeting, I did have a chance to look into Commissioner Lalonde's question about halfway homes in the state of Michigan. Yes, they are still a thing. They are still available. And in light of that, I've also, just during the course of the meeting, made a change to the proposed definition of halfway home as raised by Mr. DeHunt. And I deleted the word inmates and replaced that with the word persons. And so I'll get together with Ms. Haw, but the proposed language would read as follows: a halfway home, a licensed home for persons on release from more restrictive custodial confinement or initially placed in lieu of more restrictive custodial confinement with a goal for reintegration into society, comma, for persons with substance abuse issues, comma, or persons with chronic mental health disorders wherein supervision, rehabilitation, and counseling are provided to mainstream residents back into society, enabling them to live independently. So I think that's an improvement. So that'll be on the next agenda with the other language and sections.
Any other comments for the evening?
None for this evening, thank you.
Ms. Bragashevsky, how'd I do?
Wow, very
You like that?
impressive.
I practiced in the
Thank
mirror
you.
in the car. I practiced in the car and in the mirror before I.
Wow, I feel the respect.
Yes.
All right.
Right?
That's why.
Not bad for a Sicilian, right? Okay.
What can
Go
a
ahead.
boss say?
Yeah. No.
I wish I had something to say, but I don't. Thank
Okay.
you.
No problem, Ms. Brakaszewski. Ms. Ha, do you have any?
No comments this evening, thank you.
Commissioner Lalonde,
I have no comments.
Commissioner Naylor.
I have a comment, regarding, my neighboring, that's a vacant building with 2 feet grass. And, I did report it to the city, I'm hoping someone will get out there. Fine is good, but grass being mowed is good. So I just like to keep that 8-mile corridor looking good for the community, that's our welcoming spot. And it looks like that, we have a space here for more litter, and I just want to keep that entrance way to our city.
Thank you. Commissioner Broll,
Nothing tonight.
Secretary Yelinski.
I just want to thank everyone that is working on these ordinance changes and the group homes and the foster care homes. I appreciate it. It means a lot to me personally, and I'm really happy to see it. I also want just to say prayers for the Detroit officer that lost his life yesterday. The Brother Blue community, I have a lot of friends in it, and it really hits hard, and I just think the world's gone crazy, and I just hope it gets better. I'm thankful for all of you as well, and working together, and that's all I've got.
Vice Chair DeHaan.
Very good touch on the officer in Detroit. That was a horrible situation. Family man, good man. I read the article that his wife had commented. It's a horrible thing. We live, as my Yiddish friends would say, this world is meshugana, which means crazy. So I hope that we get back to some sense of normality, and I hate that phrase since COVID. I want to congratulate Ms. Holman on her elevation to Assistant City Manager. Well deserved. And I encourage our city council and all 5 of them to read the charter, to know their roles, and to leave our administration to do their jobs they are hired for. If they don't do their jobs, then you step in and you slap some hands. Otherwise, leave them alone, know your role, keep your nose out of things that don't really need to be messed with. Have a wonderful night.
Is a commissioner prepared to make a motion to adjourn at 8:26 PM?
I make that motion.
Do we have support? We have a motion by Vice Chair DeHaan and second by Commissioner Naylor. Secretary, please call the roll.
Mr. DeHaan,
Yes.
Ms. Naylor, Mr. Broll,
Yes.
Mr. Lalonde, Ms. Julinski, yes. Chairman Palazzolo,
Yes.